Welcome to Demystifying IT with Bopi Dal and Sarjeet Kanungo, speaking the language of IT with innovators and pioneers that have harnessed the power of information technology.
Every CEO and CIO knows the importance of a comfortable workspace, and my guest this week has transformed the way we look at office furniture. Jason McCann is the founder and CEO of Very. Jason started VeriDesk in 2013 and was the pioneer of sit-stand desk. Now as Very, the company offers everything from desks and chairs to flexible workspaces. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome, Sarjeet. So glad to talk to you today.
Absolutely. Can you tell us more about your early experiences working with your mother's hair salons and how it shaped your approach to customer service?
Yeah, so you think about being an entrepreneur or a child growing up and really learning from the first people that you get to interact with. And for me, growing up in Galveston Island, just south of Houston, got to work in my mom's hair salon, but really that was the first entrepreneur and CEO I knew. So sitting with her at the dinner table at night, talking about her business or getting to follow her to the salon and actually work there, sweeping hair and folding towels with Dorothy. This is in the early 70s. So you're talking to talk about diversity and inclusion and those types of things that are commonplace the way I grew up. But to see all that live and in action, recruiting, hiring, building a business, it was an incredible opportunity for me to learn and see what a true servant leader was like when I didn't even know what that meant 40 plus years ago.
Wow, fascinating. How did the idea for VeriDesk, now Very, came about? And what motivated you to focus on creating sit-stand desks?
Yeah, I had the blessing, as an entrepreneur, I've gone through these crazy chapters of building businesses and also being an intrapreneur. So you're almost an entrepreneur inside of somebody else's organization and leading a company. And I had a chance to lead a great company and work with my business partner, Dan Flaherty. And Dan built an incredible business, and everybody knows it for selling those inflatables that are on people's yards for Halloween and Christmas, and the singing big mouth Billy Bass fish that went on, millions and millions of people's homes all over across the world over 20 years ago, the singing fish. And Dan and I, we'd gone bust in 1999 together in 2000 during the .com craze, and I ended up working for his company to help Dan. And I helped him, and fell in love with it, became president of that company in 2009. And so we would build Christmas and Halloween product and LED lighting and all these cool, innovative products. And Dan's just a little bit older than me. And one day I walked into his office and he's standing up at this cardboard box with his laptop on it. And we're friends as well as we, make money and fight together. And we're just like anybody that's a president CEO relationship. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I've got back pain." And I talked to my doctor and she said, "Well, if you feel better standing up, you should stand up more." And so I started standing up more and I feel a little better. And I said, "But I need like a standing desk or something." So our assistant Rosemary was going online. This is 2012 and Googling and looking for a standing desk and couldn't find one. Or 6 or 8 weeks later, these crazy contraptions would show up. And Dan is very good at product from the ones I just described to you. And Dan said, "I got an idea for a product." So I grabbed our industrial designer, David, and he came into the conversation. And over this 2-hour period, Dan described, could something just slide out of a box? Could it go on top of my existing desk? Most people already have a desk they like and just pop up when I want it to and go down when I want it to. And David started drawing, and it literally became the catalyst for the idea of VeriDesk. And that got us into creating a prototype and a product, because we know products really well. So we created a product, and inside our building, Dan felt better when he used the prototypes. I felt better. I was like, "Oh, this is kind of weird. I'd never heard about standing more." And Dr. Levine from the Mayo Clinic, literally within that few months period, had coined the term "sitting is the new smoking." And we were almost like, it's a sign from God. There's something out there. We need to figure this thing out. And as we showed it to other companies here in the Dallas area, we showed it to Verizon and the Container Store and all these companies to learn. We remained in growth mindset. They gave us great feedback. And we were literally off and running, creating a product that people wanted to buy. I didn't know anything about office furniture, but I know about building companies and what people want for space and thinking about space. As a CEO, your business is always changing. So we always dreamed that our space should change. Dan had already had cool furniture, but we always made walls that move and things like that for the Gemmy business. And as we entered into the furniture world, we were like, well, is there like a trade show for furniture? I don't know anything about furniture. So we Googled it, and NeoCon is the giant trade show up in Chicago for furniture. So we're like, okay, well, let's just show up there. So we show up and we rent booths across from each other, and to make it look like we were a big company. And we had our Veridesk, and we're there with our jeans on and our t-shirts that say Veridesk. And instantly I walk in and realize I'm in a weird spot, and I see a whole bunch of people in suits. The energy's different, and we're standing there showing stand-up desks. And we're standing in the aisle to make our company look bigger so people can't get past us. We're like, it's almost like a pinball machine. And they start bumping into us in the aisle. We show them the Veridesk, and they're like, oh my God, this is great. But you have to raise the price. And I said, why? And they said, well, in the furniture industry, it's list and discount. It's a very opaque business model. So you double the price. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. And then you sell it at 50 off. And I'm like, okay. And you have to sell through a dealer network. And this is 2013, and we're watching what Tesla's doing out there. And we said, okay, hold on a minute. There's got to be a better way. Whether Amazon crushes this industry or Wayfair or Tesla or something, like direct to the customer, transparent pricing, something's got to be different. So we literally said, although we didn't want to go bust in the .com business, let's build a $99 website on 3D Cart. Let's sell direct. And let's see what happens. And that literally is how I got into the office furniture business.
Unbelievable. What a fascinating story, Jason. So Very has grown rapidly since its founding in 2013. What do you attribute to the company's success and rapid expansion?
So I think, by having a direct relationship with the customer, you can learn a lot. And so you think those early days, I had failed in other businesses, and as entrepreneurs, you have to decide, are you getting back on the horse and trying it again? And literally you're learning. So all those failures, just like in technology, just like launching software, just like launching everything, you're learning, and you have to remain in growth mindset. So we were starting to sell the product. There was this trend of sitting is the new smoking. And what I did was just kind of look out there at all these great companies. So Tony Hsieh had created Zappos. I was a huge Zappos fan. And what we realized is they had world-class service. If you didn't like the shoes, you just shipped them back. So I said, we'll do that with our Veridesks. We'll ship them and have them come back. And that got us into this relationship with the customer. If they didn't like it, they just shipped it back. But most people didn't, thank goodness. But it allowed us to learn. And then they started asking, do you have anti-fatigue mats? And I didn't know anything about anti-fatigue mats. So I went on Amazon, and I saw every single product that was bundled with an anti-fatigue mat. And I started buying all the competition's product. That was our R&D at the time. And at that moment, I realized the same factories that make our pumpkins for Michael's craft stores, for Gemmy, are the same factories that make the soles of running shoes, are the same factories that make anti-fatigue mats. So David said, why don't we just design our own? So we designed our own anti-fatigue mat, sold it to our customers, and that allowed us permission to grow and became the number one selling mat out there for anti-fatigue mats back in 2013, 2014, then monitor arms, then a full electric desk. And we did the same thing that Steve Jobs did. He didn't create the MP3 player, but he simplified it. And we believe that you have to simplify everything. So we kind of took everybody else's desk and said, these all take 30 minutes or 2 hours to assemble. It takes a professionals. Why don't we create an electric standing desk that you and I could build in 5 minutes? And that was our idea, literally almost instructionless. And we did it. So we have the easiest to assemble, best-selling standing desk out there. And that kept allowing us to grow. And so by taking care of your customers and nurturing that relationship, they give you permission to go on the journey with them. That started to change my mind. As I, like everybody now, you can read all the reviews. So I used to read, and I still read every single review that we get on our product, because I want to read the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And what I started to realize is they did a word cloud, and the number one word was love that popped up. And I said, they were saying, I love my Veridesk. And at that moment, I realized we don't have customers, we have fans, and we have fans for life. Like if we can go on their entrepreneurial journey, if we can help them transform their cultures through workspace design, that's a much bigger vision than standing desks. So how do we alleviate the pain of thinking about workspaces changing over time and entrepreneurs' businesses changing over time to help them allow to focus on their customers and we take care of them? And that's where the epiphany happened. And that's what allowed us to grow so quickly, very, very fast in the early days.
Yeah, as a customer, I can attest to that, Jason. You guys became the leading brand, and I've used your product from almost day one, and I can attest to what you were saying. So, given that you have a very strong fan base, why did you decide to rebrand Very?
Yeah, we started to go through this process, and you can visualize now. We've got desks and we have walls that move, and suddenly we have soft seating and high top tables, and really everything you need to furnish an office. So if you think about it, that was our business. We expanded into about 300 different products. And people would come into our headquarters and tour to see what the workspace of the future could be. We were doing projects for Google and Facebook, and we're doing for all these high growth companies. We're in 98% of the Fortune 500, and literally our business is growing. And then people would walk in and go, "Oh my goodness, why do you call it desk? You're so much more than a desk. Veridesk. Why you're so much bigger?" And at that moment, I'm sitting there in 2016, 2017, and we're the fastest growing company. We're having all these incredibly blessings from above of growing pains, which I always say are much more fun than shrinking pains.
Yeah.
And so as we're growing, I realized, could we build a brand that can live beyond my lifetime? I'm now 53 years old, so I'm probably 48 at the time. I said, God, could I build one of the great brands out there? And if I had a chance to do it, what would we do? And so I started emailing off register.com, the random Gmail account or whatever it was that owned very.com. And I just had this inkling. I was like, what if we could be very.com? And then we started to work with Landor, who's a marketing company out in San Francisco, and they helped take Federal Express to FedEx. And I always joke with students today when I talk to them, like, has anybody heard of Federal Express? And nobody does. They did all that branding way back, and they were able to condense it to FedEx. And so they went through a research process, and they talked to all of our a bunch of our customers. And they said, oh, Very makes much more sense. It's about flexibility. It's about change. It's the workspace, culture, all those things. And when they talked to people that had never heard of Veridesk or hadn't bought from us, what does Very mean? Flexibility, change, technology, the future, adaptability. And so it said, that is a brand that can live beyond my lifetime, that word right there. And then suddenly I got an email that said, I'll sell you very.com for $68,000. Sold, bought it. And when we did the logo refresh, we did a little box over the eye, a little square, so you could kind of a nod to the original idea of the Veridesk. And went through this process, and we spent millions of dollars repackaging and updating all of our stuff. And we're going to be very.com. And we said, okay, we're going to deliver an office. We're going to do space planning. We're going to do installation services. We're going to all across the country, anywhere that you want. We're going to be able to deliver an office in less than 28 days from design to installation. And I got TV commercials ready and Bloomberg, and we're going on CNBC and Fox and MSNBC and all the TV stations. And we're going to, oh yeah, this is going to be great. Veridesk is now Very, and we can deliver an office. And we start pumping out TV ads and start going. And all of a sudden we see all these workspace projects going in. And then COVID hit, and like the world stopped. And it was the craziest moment in time for all of us. But for me to be in the middle of a rebrand, and I'm going to transform all these offices to, oh my goodness, is the world coming to an end?
Wow. What a story. All right. So let's talk about, as a CEO, what is your vision and mission for Very, and how do you plan to continue helping companies create environments that elevate people?
Yeah, so you think in the middle of COVID, so that moment hits, and obviously like you and all these other companies, everybody had that pause, that we reflect on. It was one of those crazy moments. And so for us, I was like, what are we going to do? And I was laying there at 2 a.m. night after night, and my wife said, if you're stressed out, I can only imagine how your people feel. And I think in those moments as leaders, you think about a crisis creates clarity, and you have to really simplify. You've got to really, shorten your horizon and narrow your focus on what are the choices that you're going to make as a leader. And so I started to really hone in on that. And it became clearer and clearer to me that, we're here to help companies navigate through challenging times. Like that's what we do through growing periods, through challenging periods. We're here for them. And our brand can not only survive, but we are built for flexibility and change. And so I reached out to our teams in Asia, and they were talking about masks and distance-based design and all these things that we couldn't figure out over here. And so we literally transformed our offices right after everybody went home. And I welcomed all my team back. And we figured out on ourselves that we were going to make things happen for ourselves. And we started to do that. And we transformed literally over the next 12 months, over 1,000 companies' offices across the country, like literally leaned into the uncertainty and fear. And now we've transformed over 5,000 across the country here in the last couple of years, just helping them navigate the future of workspace and the future of work. We were blessed to be based here in Texas. And so we were able to continue operating and shipping out products. So we were shipping out thousands and thousands of electric standing desks to people's homes because people are now crunched up on their couch. They're sitting on a futon. They're crunched over a laptop. Like they need the same technology and ergonomic tools at their homes. It needs to be seamless. So just like the technology companies and Zoom and MS Teams and all the softwares for protection and the firewalls and everything, all of that, well, also the same health tools around physical and mental health and wellness. So we suddenly, arguably, it doubled the size of our total addressable market, the TAM for all the marketing people listening. And so it became this thing of like, I can help these businesses transform their spaces. I can now help them do work from home. And I can literally, as they're thinking about, we need more collaboration spaces, more team spaces. We're going to do hoteling so people reserve the desk when they're in their space. We're going to use hot desking when they're here. We need collaboration spaces. Like, let's learn together. So I've created well over 10,000 designs for clients, and we're aggregating this data now to say, okay, this is what's working. This is what's not working. Office sizes are this size, collaboration spaces here, soft seating here, residential feel. People want like a residential feel, but commercial grade quality in their workspace. How do we do spaces that are closer to where people live? And we started selling more products and designing more spaces and installing, and it's allowed us to serve more companies as they're all trying to figure out the future. And so for me, I recognize that all these challenges that you're given allow you to build the company of your dreams. And so we're going through that process right now. And it is like all companies right now. Some it's amazing for, some are facing challenges. I think we are very optimistic about the future, but we recognize you got to roll up your sleeves and make things happen. And so we're literally doing that. And now as a 10-year-old business, and I said, and I know Sarjeet, you've got kids as well. As you remember yourself at 10 years old, you remember your kids at 10 years old, and that's where Barry is right now. And so we're literally navigating that and helping some companies that we're helping are 2 or 3 years old. Some companies we're helping are 50 or 100 years old, and we're helping them navigate the future of work. And I am now a 10-year-old, company. And I'm trying to get to my teenage years and trying to become what feels like to be 25. But I recognize today I've got to stay in the present, do my job, take care of one customer at a time, ship out one order at a time, make it right, make it great, and learn with them as I help them grow their business and keep going. And that's what we're doing right now.
That's awesome. I'm gonna steal this phrase you said, crisis creates clarity. I love that.
Yeah, Patrick Lencioni talks about that a lot, and he's an incredible author at the Table Group, and their team was just here hosting a meeting. And you start to I'm introverted, and so I typically think a lot in my head. And what I realize is that clarity moment too can't just be for you as a leader inside your head. That crisis creates clarity. You've got to now lead and be the chief reminding officer, the CRO of your organization, and remind everybody why we're here. We're going to get through it, And so those become the rallying cries of how to get your team focused. And so everybody knows that we're going to get through this storm together. And so those moments of clarity really pull teams and cultures together. So your values get tested, your business plans get tested. But the stronger teams that are willing to roll up their sleeves and work together to get through it, just like a winning Super Bowl team or a winning cricket team or a winning baseball or hockey team right now, like those teams that are able to get through and grind and fight together as a team through the crisis and marching towards that clarity, that common goal, it really elevates everything. And they get to a place that was never possible before. And so you as the leader have the responsibility to remind them why we're here and where we're going and why and how we're going to get there.
So, what advice do you have for leaders who are trying to navigate the hybrid work environment and the return to the office?
Yeah, so I think there's something magical happens, and whether it's the oxytocin that's created or just the sheer camaraderie when people are together. You can feel it in every interaction that you have with people. When you talk to your group of students and they get to interact with you, when you're mentoring people that are coming through, people that are later in their careers, it's one thing to have a conversation on Zoom. It's one thing for us to talk today, but it's another thing if this is an in-person conversation. Like there's a different energy. Humans are designed to work together. And so finding ways for people to be together, whether it's through universities, whether it's through the way buildings and workspaces are created, whether it's through co-working spaces, finding ways for us to get together in as humans to work and serve others is very, very impactful. It also reminds us how much we have in common with each other. So you've got team members, right, in India, you've got team members here, we've got team members in Taiwan, team members here, we've got team members all over the country. When we're together, something magical happens. So finding those ways to do it, and it can be through your workspaces, it can be through a third space, whether it's hotels or co-working, it can be an off-sites, Airbnbs, trying some stuff, but finding those times to get together. And so I think companies are saying, we need to do it. We've got generations that haven't built the social capital, that haven't been on the battlefield together. So how do we get them spaces to work together? How do we give them the technology and tools to do that? And so I think we're all navigating that together. Some companies recognize that 4 or 5 days in the week in the office makes the most sense. They're battling a bunch of challenges. They recognize they want their teams together. Others think that they can have a team of, I would call it mercenaries, where everybody's remote all the time forever. I think the CEOs I talk to believe that in the next 5 years, teams that have been together 3 to 5 days a week are going to be stronger than teams that are never physically together. They just believe if I had to bet on two different teams, the team that's actually working together is building something bigger than a team that's a team of mercenaries that never sees each other except online. And so I'm just trying to crack the code. I think universities are trying to crack the code, schools, because they recognize there are some benefits to remote and focus time and alone time. But there's something around mental health and wellness, around leadership, around mentoring, around learning when we're together that can elevate all of us. And so for us, we're doing a lot of clients. Most of the clients that we serve, we've got a batch that are, I would call it approximately 3 days a week in the office. For us, we're testing the idea that certain teams are in on certain days. So the 100% of our company is in on Wednesdays, for example. I've got certain teams that are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Some have total flexibility except for Wednesday. And it's interesting when you start to have certain teams all come together. Other customers that we serve, because we serve thousands and thousands of companies out there, a lot like that sort of 3 to 4 days a week, and really allowing more flexibility when they can for office workers. When you start to ladder up, you realize 50% of the jobs out there today actually don't even have a remote option to them, whether they're in the service industry, hospitality, in construction, all these things. And so what we don't want is more polarization in our society. So finding ways through universities, through workspaces to get people together, I think will ultimately bring the world closer together and allow us to realize that we have a lot more in common with our fellow human beings than we think we do if we just stare at the screen all day or just watch the news all day. But when you go and you work with people or serve the community together, a lot of magic happens.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, Jason. And we have more to get to, but we have to stop here. Coming up in the second part of my conversation with Jason McCann, the co-founder of Very, Jason shares what every CEO should look for when it comes to finding a CIO.
You're building a team of teams. And so by having a key CIO on your team, if it's not your strength, because the CEO's got X amount of strengths that he or she has, to have that key partner there and the key leadership in place that is really understands your strategy and the business, that they have a seat at the executive table to navigate the future with you.
This has been Demystifying IT with Bopi Dal and Sarjeet Kanungo. Connect with Bopi and Sarjeet at demystifyingit.com, where you can take a quick assessment to explore the opportunities you may be leaving on the table and learn to expand your market or create a new one by building your business foundations on technology. Demystifying IT is a production of Forbes Books.